the discussion. And let me tell you, they have permission to correct me if anything, because these are the pioneers in the field, and I've learned a lot from all of them. I already introduced Jack Cooley, but as a reminder, he used to be a federal magistrate. He's been mediating and arbitrating for over 20 years, and has taught at numerous universities and has a wide breadth of experience in the mediation and arbitration field. Moderating today and part of the discussion today is Lynn Cohn. She's a professor at Northwestern University Law School, teaches numerous courses in negotiation and I think in alternative dispute resolution. And she's a longtime mediator and arbitrator, and in a real interesting cases. I know a certain period of time we were doing Delcon Shield arbitrations, and she's on our board of directors and has been a volunteer and trainer for us for a long time. And then Mr. Bill Hartgering. I think I referred to a mediator I co-mediated with earlier this morning, where that mediator told me to watch my facial expressions and not get too down because the parties can see that. This is Mr. Hartgering,
Coach Hartgering,
right? Who he opened the Jams and Dispute office in Chicago in 1981 through 82, and he was doing mediation here in the civil litigation context during all the lean, struggling years when no one in the world knew what mediation was, and now has an incredibly successful national practice from huge construction cases, employment matters, and you name it. So
I think the more important thing is that I first received training here. I learned all about mediation here in October of 1981, and that was my introduction to the field. And I really do still remember what I learned from it and the mediations I did here back in those days.
Good segue, so I'm going to let you guys start talking.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to share a secret. I agreed to do this today, not because I wanted to tell you what I knew, but I wanted to hear what they knew. I think it's wonderful to have an opportunity to sit down with people. We probably have different practices, but a lot of similarities, a lot of differences, and to have a chance to talk about our craft, to share our ideas with you, to get your input, and to brainstorm here a little bit. And where I wanted to start today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we like about mediation, what we don't like about mediation, since we do this quite a few hours a week. So my first question would be, what do you like about being a mediator?
Well, what I like about it is the satisfaction that you have if you get a resolution, and even if you don't get a resolution, I think there's still satisfaction in helping people to get to a certain point in their dispute, or to realize that they cannot resolve this thing at this time. There might be a later time. As a matter of fact, it happens often, and I think that I would get some agreement here, that even though in the mediation conference itself, you might not be successful on a particular day, you'll find out through subsequent telephone calls that you can bring people together even over the telephone. For me, the satisfaction of the job is very high on my list.
I think what I'm struck by is that it is an opportunity to be enormously creative. On a case-by-case basis, there's a basic format that I have, and I'm sure Jack and do the same thing, but I'm able, as I do, particularly because I meet with the parties beforehand, to try to figure out, all right, what's going to make sense here? What do I need to do with the individuals at the table? What is going to be more effective with them? And that the more I can understand about what's driving those individuals and what I can do to be most effective with them, makes this, every case is different. And every case really is an opportunity to do that kind of work, and the impact that I think I can see that I have when the case resolves, or even when they've gotten close together, or it's the first time they've ever been able to be in the same room with each other and be civil, is enormously satisfying. Most of the cases, parties start out enormously distrustful, not liking each other. A lot of the cases that I have, they have a history that goes back years, if not decades, and they've spent an awful lot of money. They got a whole lot of reasons that they don't trust each other. When we get the matter resolved, and the vast majority of them are, it's amazing to see the shift in the energy that people are. I mean, we have, when we sign the agreement, everybody wants to be in the same room. They are treating each other vastly differently, and the change that really the process brings about is really remarkable. I mean, when I was a lawyer, people talked about the best settlement's the one that neither side is happy. And that there's a certain amount, I mean, that's the conventional wisdom, and there is something to that. But as a litigator, that's sort of what I did, is I got settlements that neither side was happy because we'd settle in the courthouse. People wouldn't have a day in court. But this, they walk out in most of the cases. Sure, there are lots of cases that, you know, they're just talking about dollars, two insurance companies, and they walk away that. But many, many more of the cases, there's another element beyond each side is happy. They've had something that they needed happen, and they can walk away in a really different stance.
Do you find that in your cases that at the end of it, people feel happy and it's not, well, I gave too much, or okay, I agreed and I got rid of it? Do you find that in your cases? You do? Does anyone not feel that way all the time?
Sometimes we see relief. I don't know that it's always happiness, but they're very
Right.
happy to have got, well, happy, there's the word, to have gotten past that juncture and
I think relief's a great word.
Yeah, it's better.
moving on. Well, but
Yeah.
of course, relief does generate happiness to us too.
Maybe not at that moment.
Right, in the long haul.
They're so happy that it's over.
Yeah.
Right, it's
Well,
also relief in that they didn't know what it was going to be about. They didn't know how it was to work.
Right.
And once they got there and found out it perhaps was not as bad as they had imagined, they're able to get beyond the initial fear.
It certainly is true for
And go
people who
home.
are sitting down in a mediation, don't know what it's all about.
Mhm.
Even though they've been told in advance,
Exactly.
don't know exactly what you're going to be doing there to them. I wouldn't even say for them, I would say to them.
That's what they're worried about.
Right, right. It's very hard. It's very difficult.
I recently saw this release occur. I'd never seen it happen like this before. It happens in the smaller cases and it happens in the very large cases. This was a mediation, it was a class action, and on the other side were several government agencies. And we'd spent about 2 days in mediation already. There were a lot of things obviously that worked out, but the first one was the money. And they couldn't work it out because that issue was about $150 million. And we worked and worked and worked. And we worked to this point where we couldn't get anything together, and then I let them design the process. I won't go into it right now. It's what we're going to do then to break this deadlock. And it was, once they broke the deadlock, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it was like people were shaking hands on both sides of the aisle and then across the aisle, hugging each other. But they had a lot more to go. That was just the monetary issue. These other issues. So I sat around for about 2 hours that afternoon, you know, to help facilitate it. And after about 2 hours, they said to me, "Sorry, Jack, we don't really need you anymore." And they were doing so well, they just negotiated everything else. So you're going to find out that barrier sometimes is hard to get over in smaller cases, but in the larger cases, it's the same thing.
And that's fine. Sort of the theory of mediation is that eventually maybe people won't need us anymore. I'm not holding my breath. But the idea that they're able then to take over, I mean, that's just fine, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that your statement on the change that the process brings about is really a very important one. But what I've been seeing is that people do have that euphoria when they made they hit their aha point, and then they're able to renegotiate. But then they go away and they move away from that. And you're no longer part of that negotiating process. Some things fall apart in their feelings, or not necessarily in their payments or anything, but what have you noticed, or are there other techniques that you